Yeah, we're live. Yeah, excuse me. It's at 11:08. I'm back. That's right. I even on one of the comments I saw on YouTube, somebody said, "Hey, I haven't seen Richard in a while. Is he okay?" And I put my answer to the comment was, "I don't know, man. I heard that he stopped doing YouTube." Obviously, I have not. Everything is good. So hopefully you guys are doing good. But today we're going to talk about something cool, and that's the sloppy stage cam. So Matt over Sloppy has done great things with the guys from ELGIN, and I've done stuff with the guys from ELGIN, and they're great people. And so we wanted to do a comparison on a test that I did long ago. Not long ago. I mean, it's probably been a couple years now. But I compared the sloppy stage 1, the 1.5, the 2, and the 3 all in the same 5.3. So you guys, we can take a look at that, and I'm going to be able to show you guys dyno graphs. So it'll be cool. We'll be able to compare all those and talk about those, and then I can ask you which ones you guys would want, for your turbo cam or for your NA cam. We can look at it in that way. Hey, are these different cams that we would choose for, different applications and that kind of thing? And I know right off the bat, well, why did you test it on that combination? Well, because that's what was there. When I go to do cams, I'm going to test, like in this case, 5 different camshafts because we got to test the stock cam also. When we do that, we go, well, this is what's there right now. I'm not gonna change the, redo the whole motor so that we can get it back to some state of tune or whatever. So we tested it the way that it was, and it happened to have, we'll go over that when I put up the dyno graphs, but it was the L33 5.3 liter, but it had heads on it. So we can take a look at that. So we will bring up our video of the sloppy stage cams. Here we can see this was the power output of our first one. We ran a sloppy stage 1 camshaft, and that camshaft was a 560 lift, 216, 220 at 50, and a 114 degree load separation angle. This was the 5.3, is the L33. It had our ported trick flow heads on it. The ASCAS 220s ported by the guys from Brian Tooley. It also had the truck, or the stock truck intake manifold and throttle body on it. It had long tube headers, had a Holly on it. And with that camshaft, it made 452 horsepower and 435 foot-pounds of torque. Here's what happened. I'm just showing you now what happened when we put the sloppy stage 1.5 on it. That one was a little bit bigger, 575 lift, 220, 224 duration, and on 112. And that jumped the power up to 466, but almost the same 436 foot-pounds of torque. So again, same peak torque, but just picked up power past past 5,200 RPM or so. Next is the sloppy stage 2. That's the famous one, 585 lift, 228, 230 at 50, and a 112. And that one actually made 475. You can see again, picked up power past 5,000 or 52 or 5,300, but you can see down low, did lose power. And then the final one, sloppy stage 3. I'm going to go ahead and leave this up there so you guys can look at it. We can talk about it. The sloppy stage 3 was quite a bit bigger, 595 lift. We're kind of going up 10 thousandths in lift, but 238, 242. So, we're talking about a 10 degree jump in duration from the sloppy stage 2. That was on a 112. That one made 491 horsepower and 436 foot-pounds. And the interesting thing is the peak torque on all of these cams never varied by more than 1 foot-pound. So we started out with a 216 cam and ended up with a 238 cam. And that's a big spread in camshafts. That's more than 20 degrees of duration of an intake on the intake side. That's a lot. That's a big change in the bigness of the camshaft. And yet, roughly the same peak torque, 435 or 436 foot-pounds. And it might even be less than that because it might have been, 435.2 versus 435.6 or 7 where we rounded up. So, essentially it's the same thing within the error of margin there. So they're basically the same thing, but decidedly different power curves. You got a lot more power past the 5,200 or so RPM range, but a definite, there's definitely a loss below that. So below 3,300 or so, definitely on and more so, almost no change in low speed power at all when we compare the sloppy stage 1 versus the sloppy stage 1.5, and that was going from a 216 220 to a 220 224, so only 4 degrees really. They did tighten up the LSA a little bit from 114 to 112, and there was no loss in low speed power on that one, just a change in power. So we added 14 horsepower, but again, peak torque exactly the same, 435, 436, right in that range. But when we jumped up from the 220 cam on the sloppy 1.5 up to the 228 cam, the sloppy stage 2, the most famous of cams probably, we started seeing a loss in power. And even though the sloppy stage 2 was only a 2 degree difference between a 2 degree split between the intake and the exhaust, still, even though it's, trending toward a single pattern cam, which tends to help the low speed power, it still lost power because it's a 228 cam is still a pretty good size cam on a 5.3, which is why, even though I know it's very popular and guys have used it, and like I said, I love the guys from ELGIN and Matt and all those guys, but for me, I would never put I'd never put that camshaft in a 4.8. and I probably wouldn't put it in a 5.3 either, only because of that loss down low. Now, the nice thing about it is guys that are running a 3,000 or 3,500 RPM stall converter and running it out to 7,500 or even more than that on these turbo things with a high ram and stuff on it, it's going to charge out there. And like every cam with a turbo on it, it's going to do well. But the drivability and the low speed part of it are always the things that I like to kind of look at, because I think the other part of that is pretty easy to get with a turbo. Making lots of power with a turbo just means that you've put a big enough turbo to make a lot of power on it. The camshaft I look at not at the top end sort of thing, because with a turbo, if we want to make 1,000 horsepower, we can do that with a 1,000 horsepower turbo. I look at the other side of that, and I would be much more inclined for me to go with like a sloppy stage 1.5 that didn't really lose anything down low compared to the sloppy stage 1. Both of those cams will probably drop a little bit compared to a stock cam down in that RPM range, because we started it down at 2,500 RPM. In fact, I can rerun this thing if you want to see. We started down at 2,500. And so on a stock cam, you probably would lose some with most of these cams, but not a lot on the smaller cams. But still, you're going to lose some down there. And so that's always the area that I like to look at for turbo stuff, particularly for anything that a guy is going to drive on the street. I would kind of look at that. But the question becomes, which one of those would you guys pick? What do you think? What would you, in seeing the difference in power, from the smallest cam to the biggest cam, we had like 40 horsepower gain, which is pretty good peak to peak. Because out at the top, like out past 6,500 and going to 7,000, where these things have curved over because of using that truck intake manifold, the gains could be even more than that. But still, 40 horsepower is quite a bit. Again, no change in peak torque. That's exactly the same. But a definite decided loss down low. But which one of those would you guys pick? Would you guys pick the one that made the most peak power? Would you pick the sloppy stage 3, which, by the way, fit in this otherwise stock 5.3 liter, although it did have the trick flow heads on it? I'd have to ask Brian or the guys at Trick Flow what the valve drop is on those 220 heads. Now, these heads were also milled 30. So we have changed piston to valve clearance. And I always thought that the floppy stage 3 was kind of near the limit of that, but it seemed to fit on this. Quite honestly, between you and I never even checked piston to valve clearance on a sloppy stage 3. We just ran it because we had run other big cams on it. So I'm thinking for a manual trans carb, I might be tempted to go with this bigger cam if I was doing an NA thing. Now, if I was putting this combination together and I had these heads on it and it had like a sloppy stage 3 camshaft in it, I would definitely have a fast manifold on it, because this thing will make way over 500 or should pretty easily go over 500 with a fast manifold on this thing, and those heads and the camshaft. It's 230 plus kind of thing. So, and a good bit over 230 on the duration, and it has enough lift. It's near 600 lift, so that's probably plenty for what we're trying to do. So that's a 500 plus horsepower combination if you had an NA deal, but it definitely needs a fast manifold or something like that. A Trailblazer SS would get you probably over 500 on this combination, but a lot of that is due to the fact that we got some really, really, really good cylinder heads on this thing. But this is cool stuff. And this is why I like doing these kinds of tests, because we always see this kind of trade-off deal where, hey, look, oh yeah, it made 40 more horsepower. That's good. But let's go look at the other side and go, yeah, it lost, 20 or 30 foot-pounds of torque. So do you want that? And that area down there where you're losing the torque, on anything that's street driven, you're going to be experiencing that negative side of the camshaft thing way more than you're going to be experiencing the positive side of the camshaft. The counter to that is one of those, the sloppy stage 3 compared to a sloppy stage 1, or certainly compared to a stock camshaft, you're going to ET in mile an hour much better with that camshaft, because it makes a lot more power. And it makes power in the RPM range where after first gear, you're going to be spending most of your time. Most of the RPM ranges on this thing, especially with the sloppy stage 3, even with this truck intake manifold, I'd still shift at 7,000 or more. And then even if that dropped you down to 5,000, you'd still be in an area where you're making as much or more power than any of the other cams with the biggest one here. So it would, you would accelerate better. So once you got past that first gear launch, and then you got into second gear and you had run your first shot up to, 7,000 or a little above, and you drop down, depending on your gearing, a couple thousand RPM, then you'd be kind of in the sweet spot of the cam. So the way that you cure that on an NA combination is with converter and stuff. And on a manual trans, you dump the clutch and get the thing going where you might be traction limited anyway. So it's less of a concern for drag racing. But while you're driving around, especially if you're driving in a truck and you had I don't think you'd want a stock stall converter on a sloppy stage 3. But if you're driving around and you stomp on the gas and having less power, than these other cams, you would definitely feel that more often than the point where you're having, more power than other camshafts. But let me know what you guys think. And, how's everybody doing? We did some cool things yesterday with my wife, and my son had a soccer game, which they ended up winning, which is very, very cool. So I was kind of busy, but let's scroll back and see what you guys are doing. Knowledge, YouTube, what's going on, Riker? Dennis, what's up? Watching from work. Todd, what's going on, man? Jet Black, good afternoon. Tommy, what's up? What's up? If you get a chance, I'd love to see the kill shot by Ace's EFI system. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. I have to take a look at it. Tommy's on a break at work. Ralph, what's going on, man? Richard, any chance we get a low buck truck Hemi cam? I don't know. I would actually kind of like to do one of those. I would like to do one for the earlier Hemis, because I would argue that there's a lot more of those in wrecking yards than there are the later ones. And I think that there's definitely power to be had, judging from the testing that I've done on stuff. Watching testing in Florida. Jet Black. Doing some shakedowns. Just got the Truck Plus cam with springs. I have an LQ4. Do I need to change the rods? Are you talking about the push rods? It should work with a stock push rod. Converter would not be a bad idea, but on an LQ4, you might be able to get away with a stock converter with that camshaft on a 6-liter. Oil pump, not necessary. I'm thinking about sloppy stage 1 for my 4.8 in the Silverado. Yeah, 216, 220. That's probably okay. I honestly think, and I know that I'm promoting my stuff, but on a 4.8, I think you'd be better off with our low buck truck camshaft in that. It's a 212 cam, and I would go smaller. I would err to the smaller side on a 4.8. Just want a reliable street car. Planning on getting a 4L80 down the line with stock heads. I've got a BTR stage 3 in my 5.3. It's not very street friendly. Yeah, that's pretty big for a 5.3. That's like this sloppy stage 3. And I would argue even a sloppy stage 2, because of the thing that we're seeing down low here. to me, that screams loss of drivability. And I don't mean drivability in the sense that you can't tune around in. You can, when you step on the gas, it will go, but it will go with less enthusiasm because of that. And so there's nothing worse than having the thing feel sluggish. And compared to a stock one, it's definitely going to do that with these bigger cams. Warmer already than it was yesterday, all of 6 degrees above zero. Where's that at, Jordan? I thought you quit YouTube, yeah. Listening from the shop at near new listening for been listening for months over the Ford knowledge. Yeah, I do lots of Ford stuff. Breaking my small block Chevy turbo car first time today. Anyone have a baseline BTM setting to start it with safety? Yeah, it should start fine with 10 anywhere in the 10 to 14 degrees of timing will be fine. 78, 75 single stock cam for now. Okay. Obviously, I was wrong about the sloppy stage 2 doing almost as good as the stock cam. What I meant to say was 90% sure it makes power and torque than the factory 307 two-barrel small block almost anywhere. Compared to a 307 versus a 5.3, a 5.3 is definitely going to be better than that. Can you speak on the main differences and benefits and disadvantages of iron block versus aluminum? I can tell you from a power standpoint that an iron block is better on the LS stuff. I don't use an LS1, LS2, or LS3 aluminum block for anything that's going to be real high power, beyond 1,000 horsepower, let's say, except for the 5.3 aluminum blocks. Those are good ones, and you can make lots of power with those, and lots of guys do those. Obviously, lightweight aluminum blocks are better. For an NA thing, I would definitely pick an aluminum block because you're not going to make 1,000 horsepower NA with any sort of naturally aspirated LS aluminum motor. Or I'm not going to, let's say. maybe guys doing drag race stroker deals would, those guys are making 440-inch motors are doing, like from Sam, and those guys have done stuff that's more than 1,000, but they're usually pretty good sized motors. Stroker deals, and they're dedicated drag race things, but the vast majority of people are not going to be doing that, so you don't have to worry about it. Low buck coyote, yeah. Well, the truck coyotes, I think, are kind of low buck. If you get a truck coyote and then get some takeout cams that work, but that's the thing with coyotes, not very many guys swap cams in them, but you could put you could just put boost on and it works pretty well. Don't Hemi trucks have different size cam bearings? The motor shouldn't be any different on trucks than they are on cams. It's the same motor. There's no way that they would make dedicated ones for trucks. But the early motors and the later motors, I think, have different cams in them for some reason. Maybe the snout's different because they're VVT or something. How much different is the best cam by sloppy mechanic compared to these options? That one would be kind of between the 1 and the 1.5. It's a 219 cam. So it would be comparable, let's say, to the stage 1.5, probably. I would guess, just looking at the specs on it. Is a sleeved aluminum block better than an iron block board and stroke to 408? Well, first of all, when you mean better, just how much power are you trying to make? So let's start with that, and then we'll go everywhere that we need to go based on that. Luckily, yesterday was a cold night. Today it's cold. Forecast is minus 15. Oh, central Iowa. It's really negative 15 there. Man, that is cold. 8 degrees. Right now it is, man, it's actually nice out. I mean, it's running in shorts and stuff. Let's see here. Where's my little sun at? Here we go. Yeah, right now it's 57. Graphs for the win. Yes, exactly. Do knurled pistons add power? No. They probably would take away power. What are my thoughts on an 8.1? If you could be a little more specific about what you're trying to ask about. I've been thinking stage 3 for my LQ9, shooting for 500 to 550 and 15 pounds at 85 and a daily driver. That's going to be a bit temperamental, but I want a solid pull through the entire RPM range. Yeah, I mean, I know what you're talking about, Bob, but I wouldn't pick that camshaft. You will have a solid pull with lots smaller cams than that, and it'll be much more drivable. And if you're running 15 pounds on E85, you're going to have more power than you can use. And I just, like I said, all you're doing is ruining the bottom part of that, and you're not adding anything to the top. 1,500 to 2,000. Okay, you're going to need an aftermarket block, or some guys do sleeved blocks, but I don't think even a sleeved aluminum block for the I'd be worried about the main caps and stuff on that. For 2,000 horsepower, that's not the way that I would go. Found a supercharger boost calculator. It's saying I need a 4.5 pulley to hit 18 pounds. 4 inches saying 21 pounds. 275 is saying 48 pounds. Yeah, I don't know how they're calculating that, because boost would be a function of the NA power and the displacement and the blower size, and so there's a lot that goes into that, and all of those boost things that I've seen are not accurate. Again, because like the way that they used to do them, the guys from B&M and these blower places, Wind and different places, they had boost things that said, oh, if you do this and this and this, it makes this. I'm like, okay, what size motor is this on? Is this on a 300-inch motor, or a 400, or a 500, or a 600-inch motor? Because it's going to change. If you put that pulley combination on that blower on a 302 Ford that's stock, and then put that pulley combination on a 600-inch big block that's not stock, the boost is going to be way different. But Turbo Center, I like the 48 pounds, though. That's the one you need. I missed the Ford or the slop. Yeah, the power graphs I have up, Jordan, are the sloppy stage 1, 1.5, 2, and 3. East Coast guys and mid guys are jealous of 50 degrees. Yeah, 57 is actually pretty nice. It's supposed to get 62 today, but it's sunny, and so it's nice. Got my engine 351 back from the machine shop. They sold me aluminum heads. Turns out there are 302 heads. Swapped them for 351 Windsor aluminum heads. The only difference there should be the size of the holes for the bolts, for the head bolts or studs. A 302 head typically has a 7/16 hole, and then the 351s have 302s or have half-inch holes through them. Pretty easy to drill them, though. And then what most aftermarket heads do is they all have half-inch holes, so they fit both heads, and then they use those little inserts that neck it down to 7/16. 2 degrees in British Columbia. Yeah, that's cold. How street friendly is a Truck Plus cam? It's more friendly on a 6-liter, but would require a converter on a 4.8 or a 5.3. Can I run vacuum to my blow-off valve to the PVC spot behind my throttle body since I'm not using the PVC? Does the PVC just go directly into the manifold behind the throttle body? So I should be good for adding boost since my compression went down. I don't know why the compression would go down. What did you make a change in chamber size? Richard, have you tested 243s versus LS3 heads under boost? Yes, I've tested 799s versus LS3 heads, and we know what they do NA. And so since we know what they do NA, we know what they do under boost. An LS3 head makes more power than a 243 NA, and they will make more power at any given boost level, if that's what you use as your metric. LQ9, Truck Norris, long tubes, Trailblazer SS, all that's good. Put down 333 wheel horsepower, 356 foot-pounds. It's kind of on the lower end what I was hoping. David, how much timing does that thing have on it? The fact that you're making more torque than horsepower, let me see here. What did we do on what was the 6-liter deal here? Cathedral Port, 6.0. think that that's telling me that you are. Yeah, so when we did it, it made 80, so it made about 10 or 11 more horsepower than it made torque. So that tells me that you probably don't have enough timing in it, and that's what's stopping you from making power. Because your combination should make more horsepower than torque, than peak torque, unless that 356 was a converter flash. I know it varies a lot by location about how much does it cost to gap rings on an LQ4. The one thing I don't trust myself doing at this point. I don't know. I don't have any idea how much a shop would charge for that. I've never even inquired about that. But the labor is going to probably be fairly high because they got to disassemble the motor. If you did all the disassembly and just took the rings to somebody, but honestly, you can do it yourself. It's not that hard. Here in Florida, it's in the low 50s right now. The gaskets that Riker, what gaskets didn't fit? A 302 and a 351 head gasket are the same. I also have another LQ9 that's been left open in the weather. Got it cheap, and it dropped a valve seat. Thought it was weird for an LS. Yeah, I haven't heard of that. But how big can I punch it over and make this a 454? No, a 408 is normally what guys go to. I've seen guys go bigger than that, but you don't want to put a 4100 stroke in that thing, not with that stock sleeve length. And you don't want to go. I don't like guys that go over to make it a 6.2. But you can, they do a 4165 or a 4065 bore, and honestly, I wouldn't do that unless I had, and I definitely wouldn't do that if I was ever going to run boost on it. But I would check and make sure that you have enough cylinder wall thickness for that if you're going to try to do that. But you can't make a 454 out of it, only if you sleeve the block. Should I change the cam? It's a 6,200 pound Suburban. I don't want to lose the lower end, or should I just get used to this power? David. No, your Truck Norris cam should make more power than that. That's the right cam for low end. The 302 heads won't fit 351 Windsor gaskets. Well, why is that? Our 302 and 351 for us, all the head gaskets that we use are all interchangeable. It's exactly the same. There's no difference. The heads are interchangeable, and the heads are interchangeable, and so are the gaskets. Yeah, if I change the engine power, it lowered the boost. It took me 5 minutes to put everything into the calculator. Just hoping it will make 20 pounds with a 4-inch. You're trying to bring it down, turbocentric. You're trying to bring it down so that you don't have to use the bypass valve as much. Since I've already got the sloppy stage 2 of the motor, I'm just going to run that. When I update the turbos, I might swap out the cam for something torquier. Clear and sunny with no chemtrails here in Northern California. Hasn't been any chemtrails. Are you a chemtrails conspiracy theorist? 6.2 L92 cam suggestions going in a jet boat, looking for gains from 32 to 55. I mean, in a jet boat, do you even have to worry about the 3,200 number? I mean, if you go to wide open throttle on a jet boat, doesn't it just spin all the way up to near peak RPM anyways? I think on a jet application, you can get away with more camshaft. But just tell me how much power you want to make, and we can kind of start from there. The more I learn about things, the more I dislike my turbos. How much time do you have to spend to get the air-fuel ratio and timing right on a dyno session? On ours, it's 5 pulls maybe. That's really, really easy. And that's only for the first one takes the most time. And then like if we swap a cam, then it's after that, it's easy. It's 1 or 2 pulls. It's nothing. I'm running a 223, 231, 632, 618, 114 on a 4.8 Silverado with a 5-speed. Drivability is great. I'm sure a different cam could be even better. Yeah, 223 cam is pretty big, but the 5-speed could probably help you there. 3582 ceramic ball bearing. annoys me. They're so far different from the size of my motor. They're also not water cooled. You have a pair of those, Jordan? Those should work good, right? Although that's enough turbo to do 1,000 horsepower or more. So if you're not doing that, you could go smaller. I believe it's 24 at the top. It's on 91 pump. I foolishly decided to delete knock sensors, so there's not a lot of safety margin. Yeah, that's why you're not making more power. That if you put good gas in it so that you could put timing in it, it would make more power. But so that's not the cam's fault. That's the octane's fault. I love running sloppy stage 2 in my 5.3. It pulls pretty good, especially with the 32. Yeah, 3200 stall would work good on sloppy stage 2. Will a large heavy valve LS3 valves be available to pull 78 to 82 like a stock bottom end cathedral port guys are doing? But an LS3 valve is not a heavy valve. An LS3 valve is a light valve. But the heavier the valve, the more problems that you'll have with RPM. I'm sure you knew that, which is probably why you asked that question. The 302 gaskets I purchased after having brought the 351 Windsor Fel-Pro overhaul complete gaskets. The one thing I can say, Adam, is we ran on that 8,000 RPM motor, we ran both cathedral port heads and rec port heads, obviously with different size valves in them. And both ran cleanly to 8,000 RPM. The 302 gaskets I purchased after having bought the 351 Fel-Pro overhaul complete gaskets did fit intake gaskets. Yeah, there are different size intake gaskets for different size port heads. So we pick either a 1250 Fel-Pro or a 1262. And then there are bigger ones than that if you put something really big on there. I would be down to sleeve the LQ9 to get a 454 displacement that I could boost. That's a future Bob problem project. Okay. You can take a look at the Brian Tooley motor that we did that was a 454. Not we. All I did was dyno test it. He did it. And it made over a little over 700. And he did his, I think his was with the sleeved LS7 block. But you could also do it with a sleeved LS1 or LS2 or LS3. I did mine with an LS6 block, and we did a 468. It didn't line up. There was an offset between the 351 gasket using the 302 heads. I don't know what you mean by that. I've never seen what you're talking about. I feel like it's causing extra heat over spinning it. Yeah, it would, Turbocentra, if you're spinning it and trying to bypass that, it still would create heat. For a boost on goal of below 1,000 on an LQ4, what would be the ideal cam for responsiveness looking into the low buck truck? Delgado, I don't think there's a better cam out there than that camshaft for what you're talking about. I think that's the ideal cam for that. I think it's a really, really good low-speed power drivability cam that also pulls high enough. And 1,000 horsepower is very easy. I mean, that's 17. That's going to be like, even on a kind of otherwise stock 5.3, that's going to be like 20 pounds for 1,000 horsepower on that camshaft. And on an LQ4, not quite that much, because that was on a 5.3 that we did 920 something with it at 17 pounds. So on an LQ4, it's going to be less than that. How do you know if the block and head surfaces are smooth enough for an MLS? Can this be done by hand sanding? No, I don't think so. It's got to be done to get the RA that smooth. I don't know that you could do that by hand. Yeah, Michael's right. Yeah, I think that's got to be professionally prepped. Goal is 1,000 wheel horsepower, thinking 1,200 at one point, but on the street at 5.3, I think 1,000 would do plenty. If I can even afford a big block build. Okay. If I have a 2.75 inch exhaust, would it help low end to enlarge my pipes? For what, Eric, what motor is this and what's the configuration and all that? Have you seen the new turbo that integrates the nut into the fin so it acts like a bigger turbo? or is it snake oil? No, that's actually really, really good. That's a really good way, because you would think about it this way, Winston. If you made the impeller bigger to get more airflow, you'd like, oh, that's good. Well, that's essentially what they've done. They've made the impeller bigger, but by going inward on that and getting rid of some of the unused portion of the impeller. And it's a really good idea, and it's working really well. On the jet boat max power 6.2 at 5,500-ish, the jet max's RPM cruises around 3,300, so you don't want it to be inefficient there. Okay. Yeah, I forgot about the cruising around kind of thing. Unless the turbo has a compressor map, all claims are BS. The nut thing that he's talking about is a real thing. 35 degrees in Washington State. On another note, I got my Truck Plus cam swapped, ring gap 5.3 all together, and fired up. Just had to go to the yard for some little stuff. There you go. Way to go, Bear. We like to hear that. Do you use LPG? I haven't ever tested with it. 5.3 LM7. So what size is the exhaust? Is 2.75 inches? I don't know that an exhaust size change is going to have a noticeable difference in torque at 2,000 RPM, if that's what you're talking about. I'm surprised people aren't using more aerodynamic impeller nuts. Are you able to measure the time each cam reaches its peak? I don't know what you mean by that. Are you talking about a free rev thing? Any plans on testing the high ram for a small block Chevy? I would like to. I'd also like to test the big block Chevy one. Will an L8T go into an 18 Yukon with a 6.2 L86 same style motor? Yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't. I think that the physical dimensions are the same. Have you seen Speed Dino's ECUs? I have. I've never used one, but the guys at West Tech have. Any AI designed intakes have been 3D printed and tried yet? Most of the guys that I know that design intake manifolds don't use AI to do that. LPG. Oh, Ukraine's in the house, man. You guys, hopefully you guys are staying safe over there. Yeah, LPG is good in terms of octane. I just haven't ever used the mixers and stuff. AI intakes. Uh-oh. I like this. I like being able to bring these graphs up like this. You can see, look right here, look right there. Wow. Big power, big power. LS7 titanium rods. Would you be afraid to reuse torque-to-yield bolts, building a nice 12-to-1 compression? You know, I've never done that. I reuse all the factory bolts on all the big bang stuff, and I just redo the factory torque procedure. But I've never tried it on an LS7, and that's pretty high digit. I think I might spend the money on new bolts for that. Can a tuner unlock more power on a stock 5.3? Yes, definitely. If it has a stock motor in it and a stock program in it, he can definitely add power by adding timing to it. Has anyone ever used the Titus Cleveland blocks? I haven't. Richard, swapping heads 302 to 351, the push rods stay the same. They might or they might not. I don't know what the rocker position is on the head, because when you change cylinder heads, different cylinder heads will definitely require different push rod lengths. But I don't know what two heads you're talking about. What do you think about a ported and milled 243s on a 408, or do LS7 head swap? If you did properly ported 243s, they will flow more and make more power than a stock set of LS3 heads. You can take a look. I have the test where we tested the the Trick Flow 225s versus stock LS3 heads, and the 225s made a lot more power. So properly ported 243s will definitely make more than stock LS3 heads. Yeah. It's okay to make a 3.6 Pensar turbo. Yeah, as Oleg, as long as you can get the right amount of fuel to it, and then also take away timing, then you can run a turbo on anything. Ralph, I'm happy to help. Eric Gamble, not consistently. The 5.3 and 4.8 are tuned very good from the factory. 6.0 heavy duty trucks have some gain left in them. I've never. If you take a factory truck 5.3 or 4.8 and put it on the dyno and run it on a chassis dyno, I've never seen a tuner not be able to make more power, as long as you have the octane to do it. Oleg, on most of the stuff that I do on the engine dyno, I use a Holley, but you can and some others too. The MS3 Pro, the Haltech now. We use fast stuff, but it's always not, or very rarely has it ever been factory ECUs. You can also destroy a perfectly fine motor with asking too much from a tune. Yeah, you can add enough timing to make it detonate, and that's bad. I'm just saying that if in none of the factory tunes have an optimized amount of timing for maximum power, because that's never their thing. It has to be safe, and that's why you see these guys running around with 23 or 24 degrees of timing, because that's as much as it will take, especially with guys like me that run 87 octane in their trucks. Anybody do a rear main on a square body Chevy without pulling the motor? Has anybody done that? We did a rear main on my truck, on my 5.3. When I say we, I mean somebody else. Reading the description, I didn't realize there were knockoffs of sloppy cams. Aren't the ELGIN ones already pretty inexpensive? Not compared to what the Amazon stuff is. What would be a modest-sized turbo you would use for long life usability? For what power level, Eric? I'm surprised you don't use E85. No, because I want to get better fuel mileage. E85 is not good for fuel mileage. Regarding the 6.2 L92 cam suggestion, going in a jet boat looking for gains from 32 to 55. Let's see. So I'll give you an idea on the low buck truck camshaft, and we did it on the 6.2, or on, this was on the 6.0, but a 6.2 would be even better actually. That gained power from 2,700 all the way out to 6,500 if you wanted it, but certainly out to 5,500. So that would be a good choice for that RPM range. So if you go to richardholderperformance.com, Phil, you could take a look at that camshaft. There's some gas stations where 93 where I am, but not many. But your spark plugs will foul quicker. What will foul your spark plugs? I think I could retain my 93 tune with 91 and octane booster. Yeah, the octane booster stuff tends to leave deposits, not fouling deposits normally, but it definitely discolors the spark plugs. But I have not seen them foul from doing that. And the difference between 91 and 93 will have no effect on fouling a plug. When E85 is 40% cheaper on you only 30% less energy, you fill up more, but it costs less. Pay $225 for 85. I don't think the math is correct there on the fuel mileage versus cost on the 85. I don't care about the plugs. I just don't want it to detonate. Yeah, no, that's better. I've heard octane booster messes up spark plugs over time. I might be more concerned with the O2 sensors on the. I don't know what the octane booster is for what that does to the longevity of O2 sensors. I don't know if it's O2 sensor friendly. Maybe it is. But you could also put water methanol on there. The amount of extra fuel that you use at wide open throttle on E85 is not indicative of what the fuel mileage is. I get said about the gas being cut with 10%. 87 versus 85 cost ratio isn't always in favor of 85. But when it is, I get it. Okay. And the nice thing is, if you have a motor that could use E85, like it needs it for the power and for the safety, and especially because you wouldn't compare E85 to 87 for any sort of performance envelope deal, because, you know, if I had a blower on there, I'd be running 85 in it, because even if it costs a little bit more, it'd still be better, and it would be way better than 91. Do you have any experience with Dorman 3-bolt truck intake manifolds? Yes, I have a video up on that already. We tested it. The Dorman truck intake manifold wasn't as good as the stock one in my testing. I want to retest that, but it wasn't as good as the stock one. I know a lot of guys are pointing at that saying, oh yeah, this is this is like the fast manifold. I'm like, no, it has the word manifold in it, but that's it. I love E85 because whenever we run anything boosted on the dyno at West Tech, I always use E85 anymore. It used to be that we used nothing but race gas. People got mad at that all the time. I would put race gas in. I'm like, look, I'm going to put race gas in it because I don't want to hurt it while we're testing. And so I just want to make sure that the motor does what the motor does. And I honestly don't care about getting the most out of it on 91. That's not, to me, that's not really a thing. My stock ECU, my Crown Vic made 12 horsepower more than E85 versus regular. Yeah, if you're timing limited and it adds timing, then you can make power. I can feel it on the highway. I looked into E85, but the cost was too much considering what you use twice as much as. Now that I boost, I think it'd be safer. Yeah, I don't think twice as much is the number, but it is more. Yeah. Sean said, I hate that I have to burn a quarter of a tank of E85 just to get back home from the closest gas station that has E85. That makes it a lot less cost friendly. Is there much gain from an E85 on an NALS? I haven't seen it. I haven't ever seen an NALS where we've gained like a significant amount of power that isn't onesies and twosies kinds of things. On an LT motor, yes. On a Coyote motor, yes. But not on a junkyard 5.3 or 6.0 or anything. Richard, I need your input. I'm about to purchase a forged cranking rod, supposedly for 1,500 horsepower. Oh, okay. I think that's good. I think the Dragon Slayer cranks are the go-to things for people. Implementing flex fuel so you have the option seems inexpensive enough. Yeah, that's a good idea. This is a C7 will hold 1,000 horsepower. Well, a stock crank will hold 1,000 horsepower. Use Max Lead 2000. That sounds like a futuristic name. I use the Prius to fetch E85 for the project car. There you go. I get 16 miles per gallon on E85 and 17 on 87. Yeah, that doesn't seem right. I haven't seen a drop like that. Usually it's way more than that. But he spent $1,000 to run E85 as an NA LS2 and picked up 6 horsepower. What does poor quality E mean? I think that they're talking about the ratio of gas to alcohol in that. It's not E85. It's E75 or 70 or 60 or 50. It could be as low as E50 is what their acceptable range is for calling it E85. This year I'll be adding flex fuel to both my cars. On stock LS setting O2 switching voltage to 35 millivolts, runs closed loop at 16 AFR lean burn. Yeah, that's a good idea. Pump gas in 85 makes the same power. Flex fuel conversion cost me $350, I recall. So what did you have to do? Did you have to change was it a pump change? Was it an injector change? Was it the flex fuel sensor and a tune kind of thing? 85 seems to keep things clean, less carbon. Yeah, it does do that. Adrian, you think charge cooling helps with fuel mileage? Flex fuel. I remember when flex fuel started becoming a thing. People are like, "Hey, put the sensor in, and I want you to run." I remember guys, "Well, hey, I want you to run on the dyno. I want you to run it with this sensor, and then we'll change the fuel, and then it'll just tune by itself." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a little leery of that." ZL1 flex fuel and tune. I think the 5th gen ZL1s need a boosted pump though. Okay. Yeah, charge cooling definitely helps with power. I had the injectors, but it was a pump and the sensor. Okay. Did you, Ragtop, did you have to get a pump because the pump that you had didn't flow enough to support the other 25 to 30% of fuel that you needed? That's an important thing. That is important. You got to have flow for the go. That's right. That just happened. I had injectors, but it was a pump in the sensor. Yeah, you got to have that, man. You got to do it. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. 6 gen ZL1 like mine. I think the stock fuel system is enough at stock boost. There's probably a gain on E85 even at the stock boost level. I don't know how limited those are in terms of timing and stuff on the if they're tuned for 91, they have to have timing taken away on them. Even with that really wide LSA cam that's kind of soft down low, they got to have a bunch of fuel or timing taken away. Long-term fuel trims on GM vehicles are enough for 30% to tune closed loop, right? To adjust for E85. I've run E85 in my car before, my truck before. A lot of times when I'm testing down at West Tech, I have extra E85 that we didn't use, and I didn't want it to just sit around. I told the guys at West Tech, I said, you can just keep this, just use it for whatever you guys are doing next. And they're like, yeah, we don't really have any E85 things coming up. So I'm like, okay. And I just pour 5 gallons of E85 into my truck, and it just mixes with whatever's there and just drives around. The computer's like, okay, whatever's, we don't know what's going on here, but we'll adjust. Will LS9 injector support 600? Does anybody know what an LS9 injector size is? LS9 injector size 56s. 52s are pretty big. Yeah, 52s will support 600 horsepower. I live in Ireland. I have no idea if we have E85 anywhere. Just doing flex fuel and headers and cold air intake. Mostly want more blower and exhaust noise. There you go. How to make 5.7 LS1 reliable at 1500. I keep hearing that 5.7 LS1 block itself won't hold. It will not. You can't address that block. It's not designed for that sort of strength. For 1500 horsepower, you need to get an iron block or an aftermarket block if you're going to try to be running that reliably. They just quoted Ice Cube. That's right. I don't think I'm that cool. Got a couple more minutes. So do you guys like having the graphs up there? Aluminum guys have run the aluminum 5.3 blocks to 1500 horsepower. I just am not, I don't know how many passes they get out at that power level. Flim Flam, we don't run 5.7 aluminum blocks more than 1,000 horsepower. You can encase it in iron. Just dip it in iron, right? Just melt away all the bad aluminum. So hands up. Let's see a show of hands. Who likes do you guys like the graphs and stuff up here? Rather than just looking at me, because I mean, let's face it, you know, yes, graph's good. Okay, see, there's somebody answering the question. You see, Clay's bought half of Bradenton. I did. That's cool. My buddy Jimmy was telling me about it. Drag race. He's definitely a drag racer. Go Cletus. Would it help to fill? I don't know. What do you think, Bill? I mean, I guess you could do that. And maybe guys are doing that on the really high horsepower stuff. On the 5.3 stuff. I think if you sleeved it and did a half fill on or something like that. Graphs are nice. Be nice if you could color them separately. Yeah, I don't think that'll help in this case. This is enough of a difference where you could kind of see that. But I cannot do that. It won't allow me to do that. The big block ones look the best. What is it? Let's see what this one looks like. No, I don't want that. Nobody likes that. That's good for nothing. Ooh, dude, Dustin, nice use of graph emojis. See, he knows what it's all about. And where's Brady? Brady, Bruno, are you guys out there? What are you guys doing, man? Yeah, I like that. This is how, when I'm talking to people, that's how I visualize it when I'm speaking. This is what I see. This is the matrix that I see, is that I like the graph for my LT4. Torque is almost flat. I mean, not really, but close enough. Yeah, it depends on how we scale it. But yeah, if you just carry the torque flat, like if you want to see a flat torque curve, look at a Honda VTEC motor. Should do graphs on a slideshow. Exactly. See, Adrian's thinking Honda also. Yeah, the Honda torque curve just goes wah, brrr, just where the VTEC jumps up. But if you carry out the same torque production higher in the RPM range, the horsepower curve goes up. I like that. It's like magic stuff. It's like math. A lot like math. There. What's going on with these Chevy LT bearing failures? I don't know. Is that a thing? Are they rod bearings? Are they main bearings? What are they? LT4, like the bigger headed LT1. I've been touching a lot of B series. Oh, they've been doing those motors for hammers, really? I didn't know that was a thing for B series. What are they putting those in? Are they putting those in Like off-road buggies or something? Oh, cool. I would like to do a really small one of those. Truggies, okay. I've always wanted to do a 1 liter B series. How is an LT4 a Honda engine? I think he was referring, Sean. I think he was referring to the flat torque curve. Any chance you might convert a factory ECU to run on the dyno untuned as a reference point to show what? To show what the gain is? We can already do that. All we have to do is monitor the factory ECU and see what the timing curve is and see what the air fuel is, and then we just duplicate that on the dyno with a non-factory ECU. It's really easy. We've already done that. But the problem is every factory ECU on every vehicle on every run is not the same because it's constantly adjusting. They're full suspension, but like 1-seater, smallish things. Okay. Are 5.354s known to be problematic? 3-valve 5.4s. Yeah, I think that those have the spark plug issue, if I recall correctly. What do you recommend for the Truck Plus cam and LQ4 just for reliability? I don't know what you're asking about. What do I recommend? Is an LM7 an upgrade from a passenger car LT1 19's engine? If you have a Gen 2 350 LT1, it makes as much power as a junkyard LM7 does, or roughly. 3 questions. Oil recommendation for flat tab break-in. Just a high zinc break-in oil. Oil recommendation for small block Chevy with a turbo. Any sort of oil, as long as you change it regularly. I don't know what your bearing clearances are or anything, but I like to go with a 5W30 on stuff. Ever make a video on the difference in horsepower between oil weights? Yes, I have, and lighter weight does make more power. Lakeside, am I missing something? Well, I have graphs up on sloppy stage 1, 1.5, 2, and 3, which you can see up there right now. And we talked all about the different power levels and what we'd use them for and all that stuff early on. But you're late, so you didn't get to hear all that good stuff. But the graphs are up. And we're counting down to 1 minute. We got our 30. This is not even a 1 minute alarm. This is 30 seconds. No, Lake, you're all good, man. But yeah, we're just talking about the differences in the power curves. They all made the same peak torque, loss down low from the bigger cams, gains up top. You know, kind of typical stuff. Kind of typical stuff. Stock ELQ4. I'm going to install Truck Plus cam. Should I upgrade anything else? No. Cam springs, push rod should work. Converter, yes, would be a good idea. Converter will always help. And you're going to have to tune it, obviously. I don't know. You're also going to have to do, Brian, you're going to have to do, Brian, see, you're going to have to do injectors too. You need more fuel. We have injectors and pumps on sale right now. $2,500 main and rod. They're both the same. Usually rod is bigger. I mean, the main bearing is bigger, so you have more main clearance than rod clearance. That's a little loose on the rod, I would think. It's kind of in the middle, so it'll probably work fine. But I would still do a 530. Yeah, I'll be back tonight, Lunchbox. Looking at the graph, I don't think sloppy stage 3 would be worth the drivability issues. Yeah, like I said, I'd only pick that if I was making a dedicated NA kind of thing. Brian, we have 52s, 80s, and 1000s. And if you're only doing NA and you're never going to add a turbo, 52s work good. If you're going to, because they fit the truck manifolds. And if you're going to go to a turbo, then get something bigger, like get the 80s or the 1000s. And on that note, it is time to go, but I will see you guys all tonight. Tonight. Whoa.